This program is produced by Eagle Mountain Apostolic Resource Center. To find additional episodes of this program, as well as other content, visit eaglemountain.tv. This program is about stewarding the word God has given. It's about putting apostolic feet to prophetic hope. It's our mission to purposefully equip the world to transform their regions with God's love. We want to create an atmosphere of divine influence to the nations by walking in the power of His Holy Spirit with a faith that shapes the future. Welcome to Inside the Ark.
Hey everyone, welcome to Inside the Ark. My name is Chris Behnke. I'm here with Bobby and Becky Haaby, and we are diving into in this show. We have the privilege of digging into these these various messages, and it is really awesome. Yeah, I love this thing.
I know.
I love it because a lot of times I think that we hear different things from the Lord as we're listening to the message that you're giving or something like this, and then we don't know. Well, I don't know what you're hearing, but in this, we really get to dig into it. So we're digging into a message, Bobby, that you gave called Living in Alignment, and I'm pumped to get into it. So when you think of alignment, I think a lot of times that can mean a lot of things to different people. Jason was just saying how he was thinking that immediately meant cars, but his wife was saying, no, that's like shooting arrows. And so just lay it out for us. Living in alignment, when we think about alignment, what are you referring to in this particular context?
Yeah. God said in Acts chapter 17 that He created the time in which we should live, the family into which we were born, actually where we live. And that means God's specific about who we are. He's specific about the life that He's called us to live. He's specific about our mandate. He's specific about the family into which we were born and the kids that we have and all of that. He's specific about bloodlines. And gosh, we can leave all of those details and more of them to Him because He's so magnanimous. But to know the fact that we've been created for such a time as this, for a purpose, for right now, brings intentionality. And when we understand that and begin to partner with it, we have a better opportunity to come into alignment with it. And so alignment, just at a high level, is really understanding the purpose and plan and identity of God for your life and intentionally being on a path every year to walk that out. And so that will, in this teaching, we discuss how to do that, why it's important, and then the things that you can notice that you're not living in alignment on. So I wanted to be super practical and say, okay, what does being out of alignment? And I used sort of a musical picture, and that was instruments for guitarists and other instruments. A lot of things in the digital space have to run through from one instrument or one effect or one amplifier to another. And how you create the alignment, which is called the signal path, will determine whether you're in phase or out of phase. And so I used that as a word picture of what it means to live in alignment or out of alignment, in phase or out of phase.
That's really good.
So good.
One of the things, being on the sound side of, music is often what I have the capability of doing this for anything, any instrument, any vocal channel, whatever it is. But what I find interesting is sometimes the musician has everything in order. And on their little pedal board, and they're just like going for it. But what we can hear is really out of phase. And so what I have to do is press this button that causes their phase to change. Yeah. It causes a change, a shift. So what we hear now sounds better through, with the human ear. So what I am getting out of that is, some of us might feel like we're in alignment. And we might be going for it and living our lives, but it's going to take someone who's hearing and experiencing you to know if you're out of phase or if you're in phase. And they are the ones, we can't do this alone. We need people in our lives who are in that place of intentional relationship with us to help us go, honey, let me press that button and get you back into phase. Or,
Good.
Let me rephase you.
Let me
Yes.
rephase you.
Yes.
Yes, because if it's all up here and we're all right here, you can get off.
That's good.
Wow.
You can definitely get out of
Unfortunately.
phase,
Yes.
out of alignment.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. I talked about how we have the faces of God that are most familiar to us are the ones that we like to exemplify. And so if I'm more prone to see God as my Savior, then I'm going to identify with him more as my Savior, and that's not a bad revelation. I mean, that's who he is. That's what he is. But he's also my discipler. And often, again, I try to create the Lord into my image and go, well, I more know him as the bridegroom, the one who saved me, the ones who's intimately acquainted with my needs. Well, he is that, but he's also the great discipler, where he brings you into a place of allowing him to speak to the depths of your life, right? In the sort of the saved mode, that's where we get the benefits of him giving his life for us. In the discipled mode, that's where he gets the benefit of us laying down our life for him. And then if we go through that disciple mode, and that's our goal, then we step into friendship on new levels. I no longer call you just servants, but I call you disciples. I call you friends. So that doesn't mean we ever leave the discipling or the serving. Hey, I'm sorry, I'm too mature to serve now. Yeah. And we never graduate that way. But it does mean that our discipling leads to a level of friendship that we can't get to any other way.
That is good. That is good.
I feel like people are always trying to get that out of order.
Out of phase.
Yes.
Out of phase.
Out of phase.
Out of phase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you actually in the message you go into like, how do you know if you're in phase? And you give us some questions to ask ourselves. But I propose that we should ask other people these questions.
Nice.
So that we aren't stuck to, the good
You mean
self-tell.
about ourselves?
Yes, about ourselves.
Yes.
Because Chris, you're gonna, if you love me like you should as a brother, you're gonna tell me, honey, you're out of phase in this area, or that's faulty thinking, and you go through all of those to talk about, those areas that we can, we can ask that question to. But one of the things that you had just talked about was the revelation of Jesus. So is this true, guys? You tell me if you believe this. Is it true that in certain phases of your life, when you're first saved, there's an alignment that's happening and a freedom that's coming and an alignment with the kingdom culture that's going on? You're reborn, so everything you knew that was concrete within your belief system is now gone. That's the rebirthing. You are now a spiritual being, a totally new creation. And in that phase, in that stage, you have the revelation of the bridegroom. You know the bridegroom, you have the revelation of him. He's alongside of you. He's caring, he's nurturing, he's, for you. And then all of a sudden, he's like, okay, it's time to grow. Come on, people, let's grow. And he starts talking to you about some things that when you were first saved, you were still doing. But he's like, that does not work for you anymore.
Yeah.
Because that was there because of this, 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 and this. And
Right.
now you have freedom, and you don't need to have that as a part of your life because you've got my freedom.
Yeah.
And so that's like that discipling that you're talking about. But do you guys feel that? Do you feel like, that what was good in my relationship with God as the bridegroom in my life, what was happening, is no longer okay because now we're in this discipleship stage?
Totally. Yeah. So when you're talking about that, it reminds me of flying lessons.
Yeah.
So like when you're learning to fly, you start with an instructor. And when you're first learning to land, landing is the thing that's difficult. Everything else is easy. Landing is the thing that's difficult. So when you're first learning to land, first the instructor does it. And it just boom, and seems perfect. And then he's like, okay, now you do it. So then you go in, and it's like kind of a nightmare, but you get on the ground safely. But the instructor was, at least for me, they had their hands on the thing the whole time. Mm-hmm. So you actually were kind of not still doing it. And then pretty soon they're just watching and you're doing it and it's a mess. And they're like, that was great, but it's a mess. Mm. And then pretty soon it's good enough for you to do this thing where they call that solo. Mm-hmm. That means you're going to fly and land the plane and they're not there. So they think that you're good enough to land the plane and not die and not ruin the plane. And you're kind of like, whoa, that was a good landing. Okay, the truth is, if there was a passenger that was not used to flying in a small airplane with a beginning pilot in there, they would be terrified because it wasn't a good landing at all. Yeah. It was actually horrible. But at the place you are in your journey, it was great. But you're still not ready to have passengers. They think you're safe enough to not kill yourself, but you're not safe enough to not kill yourself enough that you can have passengers.
Right.
So there's this thing, there's this process that goes along and along and along. And then eventually, if you go far enough, you're good enough that you can land a commercial plane and all of the passengers that paid to fly someplace aren't terrified. They don't even know it. They're just concerned about getting to their next gate. That's a lot different than at the beginning when you landed-ish. But it seemed great to you. And I feel like that's kind of like this journey that you're talking about. Like in the beginning, your instructor's going to say, that was a great landing. Whoa. I'm glad I'm still alive. But it was a great landing for then. Yeah. But there's this journey that you're going on. You're not landing the 727 with passengers on it because they're never going to fly on that airline again because they're going to be terrified because it's actually bad. Yeah. But you have to be appropriate for where you are. And I feel like this is just like so powerful to understand this out of phase, this out of alignment. It's when you're trying to land the commercial plane, when you're actually barely able to get you shouldn't even be flying by yourself yet. Does that resonate?
Totally. That's the milk. When, in the scriptures, it talks about, hey, I fed you milk. Yeah. But you should have been able to handle the meat.
Totally.
Okay. That's,
and
I was
it's like that in the lesson too. Like at one point, the instructor's like, okay, I'm not going to help you this time. And I'm like, secretly, I'm like, but he doesn't want to die, so maybe he will. But there comes this point where it's just like what Paul's saying, actually, no, milk's not okay anymore. You need to land the plane. You need to eat the meat. You shouldn't be doing that in your life anymore. That kind of bitterness, like it was never okay, but it was kind of acceptable back then. But it's not acceptable anymore. It's time to go. It's time to go to this next thing. And if you stay down here at this level, you're actually out of phase from where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow. Yeah. And
that's good.
I don't mean to stop you. Are you going to say something?
I will say one thing.
Yeah, go.
What Chris is saying reminds me of what the founder of the Vineyard movement used to say back in the 80s. I didn't get saved till the mid 90s, but I remember listening to some of his messages from like 88. And he was talking about levels of maturity. And he said, what you can get away with in the outer court will get you killed in the Holy of Holies.
Wow.
Toasted.
Okay, same
yes.
thing.
Put a rope on your ankle because that'll get to work in this next season.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you go beyond the veil, what you used to be able to get away with in immaturity.
Wow.
So that's just called maturity. That's not a weird God. That's not religious. That's just called growing up.
Wow.
Paul said, when I was a young child, I spoke as a child, and now I'm grown.
Yeah.
And I think on mature things. I grow into it. So I love the concept of the Lord realigning us and bringing us into in phase to the current season. That's part of, not walking in yesterday's anointing, like stale bread, right? From 20, 30 years ago. Why aren't we having new encounters today? So, yeah.
That's really good. Okay, this is how I'm envisioning this out of phase as well. When you're out of alignment or out of phase, I think dimensionally. So dimensionally, if you're out of phase, then there are tangible things that you no longer, like your hand would just swipe through this, or you couldn't say, couldn't like touch somebody because you're out of phase in the dimension that they're in. And if you're out of alignment and you're in this, you're wanting to remain in the milk season,
right?
Then when God's calling you to the meat season, you're out of touch with what's happening and what's really going on. So even how you perceive things becomes off because you're out of phase.
Oh, very good.
But just like you said, Becky, if there isn't somebody and you're not paying attention, you won't know.
Right.
That's the thing.
That is so true.
Yeah.
That's the reason why we need each other, people.
Absolutely.
Like not just to encourage. I'm sorry. Not just to encourage, and you're doing it. And I love cheerleaders. Don't get me wrong, but I love authentic friends.
Totally.
More. So
absolutely. No, back to your point, right? You said, hey, the musician on stage is never going to know if he's out of phase.
That's true.
It requires the sound tech to go, hey, I don't know if you can hear that or not, but I can. And I'm going to help.
Yes.
And that's the point.
It is.
For people helping. So here's some questions to help, whether you're in phase or out of phase. Number one, what do you think about the most? Yeah. Like, ask yourself that. Am I in phase? What do I think about the most? Is it what the Lord's called you to? Is it what you're becoming? Like, how do I know? Well, just go right to your thought life. Your thought life it's like opening your checkbook register. It will tell you what you focus on the most. So the question literally is, what do you think about? The second one is, what or who do I talk about? If a grandparent is always talking about those grandkids, 90% of the time, that's like a focus there. I'm not saying that's out of alignment for their season. As a grandparent, that might be your alignment.
But it's telling.
It is telling. Yes. And that's the thing. So just don't do this, don't let the unique pass by the simple. Ask yourself, what do I think about the most?
Ooh, that's good.
I think also in the message you talked about tests. So in every phase of life with Christ, we have tests. There's testings, and all of the tests are for our good. Some of them are to, like, where's that sand of Egypt in your pockets? Or is it still there? Yeah. And some tests are to say, see, I told you, you have courage. See, I told you. You can do all things through me because I'm strengthening you. So the tests in these areas that we have, some could be harder to pass, but others can be, even though they seem like a good thing. So one of them that you brought up is this, the test of success and the test of how do you handle success? And I am, in this, I've been working on computers today, and I've been working on Glory Light Transformation Center. So if you don't know what Glory Light Transformation Center is, you need to go check it out on our website. You can find it under resources on our website. So there you go. Or even on the homepage. But it's all about freedom. Yeah. It's living a free life. And but so many people think that and have this understanding, and I had this understanding, when, oh my goodness, like as a kid, I was like, freedom. It means I can do anything I want. I can eat anything I want. I can stay out as long as I want. And I think God had a mother who was highly prophetic and didn't know it. And she literally would walk in my room and say, okay, so this is what you're planning to do. And this is how you're doing it. And this is what you're going to do. So you're not going to do any of that. And I'm just like, what? And, but she always knew. And I came to this conclusion. It's pointless to try to do things that would feed my soul, but not feed my spirit and my body. I needed those boundaries. So freedom actually means you have liberty to walk within the bounds that God has designed for your life. That's one of the definitions I hold fast to for freedom. And so, in this, the test of freedom is one of the things that you actually, in this message, you mention is how do you stay in alignment with God when these tests are coming, and you stay in alignment with what phase He has you in.
Man.
So, do you guys have anything to say? That was like a long little rant.
Oh no, I love it.
Did you guys have anything to say on that? Like,
Bobby does.
Let's think of these tests, people, because all of you are getting tested.
Yeah, that's one thing that's universally true for sure.
Yes. Everyone's going through something, good or bad, and there's a test in it. And what do you have to say?
Well, I love what our friend Chris Valentin says, that after the test comes your Monet.
What is Monet?
And that's how you get a testimony.
Okay.
You can't have a Monet without a test.
I was
right.
like,
And so I something similar that I used to say as well. After the testing comes your blessing. Yeah. And so this is people think a test is to expose your weakness, because that's who God is.
Yeah.
And a test
I'll reveal this heathen Gentile dog.
Yes, exactly. And the test is supposed to actually reveal how much you've learned to trust in the Lord.
Wow.
If you shift it, it's supposed to be a telltale to you of what you have learned. Of course, there's always more to learn. There will be for eternity. That shouldn't be a surprise to us. But for a slave mentality, a test is something to be to hide from. When that was never the design. The test was supposed to show throughout even Israel's history where God was for them, with an outstretched arm and a strong right hand. So I just feel like, gosh, those are the moments where whatever you focus on gets your attention. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so if we are focused on, wait a minute, God's doing something to show me how far I've come. This is amazing. Then I'll have a much better time staying in alignment to what He's doing. But when I start seeing the test as a revealing of my weakness, the first thing I'm going to want to do is pull an Adam and hide.
Yeah. So then I think it would be fair to say that the testing is actually meant to show how much you're in alignment with the Lord and the phase that He has you in.
Yeah. So
that's good.
It's actually it's not just the testing and then the blessing. It's actually part of the blessing. It just doesn't feel like it.
That's a good way to say it. Yeah.
As a part of it.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it.
Yep.
In fact, maybe this is reaching, but could you even say that you couldn't really experience the fullness of the blessing without the test?
Ooh.
Because here's what I'm thinking. There's this place in Yosemite that's incredible. It's called Cloud's Rest. And Cloud's Rest is actually about 500 feet above, what's the one?
El Capitan?
No, the one that Half Dome. It's very dangerous, but people do it anyway. You go up it, you got to get a permit. It's actually above it. It actually looks down on Half Dome. Half Dome's the famous one. And I went to go climb Half Dome. You have to get a permit. We didn't get the permit. Uh-oh. Then you do a lottery, and then we didn't get the lottery. So we decided to do Cloud's Rest instead. Now there's two ways to get to Cloud's Rest. One way is 27 miles from the floor.
Whoa.
One way. No, round trip. But still very far. The second way is if the pass is open, you could drive almost the whole way, and then it's 6 miles. So what's interesting is the view the same if you only hike 6 miles versus 27?
Interesting.
It is. It's the same view.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because like the view after 27 miles is just better.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I mean, it's the same
All
view,
that
right?
Yeah.
But
Hard
it's
work
not.
to get there. Yeah.
It's
So
hard
like
work,
the
yeah.
blessing isn't as powerful. I mean, I don't even know if I agree with what I'm saying, but I feel like that it's just not the same if you don't have to go through the money's not the same without the test.
Yeah. No,
There
it's
you go.
not. It's the same thing when you look in the eyes of somebody that you've traveled through hard things with.
Yeah.
When you look at your spouse, when you look at a business partner, something that you're like, gosh, I don't just love you because we're doing great things together. I love you because we have walked through time, obstacles, and all of that. It's just way, way better. Yeah. It's like how much better food tastes if you're fasting. It's just one of those.
You mean after you're done
yes,
fasting?
once you've-
not
yes.
while you're fasting.
Yes.
You're done. Yeah.
It's just
Good.
that same thing, I think, as
Yeah.
we're all talking about it. And I feel like the encouragement is to, if I'm in alignment with my season, I'll see it as a blessing.
Yeah. That's
Right.
good.
I'll be like, okay, Lord, thank you for this season. Thank you for this time. And I'm happy to align myself to it, because you will feel tension in your body when you're not aligned to your season.
Wow. That's
Very cool.
amazing.
And likewise, you'll feel joy. You won't even know why.
Yeah.
And it's because
Yeah.
you are aligned to your season, even if your season is not going amazingly well right now.
Yeah.
If you're aligned to it, you will feel joy.
Right. Wow.
Because it's not contingent to what's happening. It's contingent to alignment.
Wow.
I feel like this is universally applicable, because there's nobody that, like, people are in all kinds of different seasons. Every person that's listening to this is in a different situation. And if what you're saying is so powerful, because if we can ensure that we're in alignment with what the Lord is doing in that season, then we're going to experience joy. We're going to actually come out with a testimony. We're going to actually come out where God wants us to come out.
Yeah.
If we aren't, if we don't allow that fashioning to happen, then like, have fun, because you're going through this situation, you know, whatever it is, especially if it's a negative situation, and you're not going to have the benefit of what God's trying to do.
Yeah.
I feel like it's so powerful. It's applicable to there's literally every single person that is listening to this. It's applicable to you. So thank you for doing that. You guys, thank you for pouring into this episode. These are so amazing. You guys need to go check out the full message that Bobby released. It's really powerful. You can find that information in what we call the show notes. So in most of the platforms right below, we stream this on lots of places, but right below there should be a description. Click on that link. If you can't find it there, then go to eaglemountain.global, click on the TV, Eagle Mountain TV button, and then you'll find Inside the Ark, and you can see all of these episodes. You can see the show notes. You can find the message in there. And there's other amazing programs as well. I've got a 24/7 channel. You can find that. And then also, if producing this stuff is difficult, I don't know if you know that, but making TV is difficult and expensive. So if you've been blessed by this, we would love it if you would go over to the give button and support us financially, what we're doing at Eagle Mountain. It's amazing content that we feel the Lord's given us, but we can't release that well without the finances to do so. So if you would support us, we'd really appreciate that. But in the meantime, go get yourself aligned. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Come on.
Get yourself in phase.
Yeah.
Because it's definitely important. So, you guys, thank you. We will see you guys on the next episode of Inside the Ark. See you later.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Inside the Ark. We hope that you've been blessed by this program. If you'd like to discover other episodes of Inside the Ark, please visit eaglemountain.global. We'd also love for you to prayerfully consider supporting this and other programs available on Eagle Mountain TV. You can give to this ministry by visiting eaglemountain.global and clicking on the Give tab. We hope to see you in the next episode.